Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Think Future. My name's Chris Kalaboukis, and once again, we're coming at you live from deep in the heart of Silicon Valley, California. We're talking innovation startups, the future. Not necessarily those, and not necessarily in that order. If you're watching on YouTube, smack that subscribe button and hit that bell so you can be notified when a new show comes online. And if you're listening on your favorite podcast service, please subscribe and please drop a note on Apple Podcasts if you like the show. I would greatly appreciate it. So, yesterday we talked about AI behaving badly. And most of the time this AI behaves badly is because we've given the AI a corpus of human interactions in order for it to learn. So we're saying to a human, we're saying to an AI, here's a bunch of human interactions, learn from these human interactions, and maybe if you learn from these human interactions, you too can become more human. It's kind of like the same thing that we do for our kids, right? When a kid is born, we interact in front of the kid so the kid can learn how to interact. But for some reason, we can turn out really good kids, but we can't turn out really good AI models. Because for some reason, when the AI models go onto the internet and they look at interactions between human beings on the internet, it gets a completely different idea of how it should react. Why is it that when we give machines a corpus of interactions between human beings on the internet, that it turns out so much worse than if we personally communicated with individual babies and children as they grew? Why is that, I wonder? So let's look a little bit at the data that the AI is pulling its behaviors from. Look at the behaviors between human beings on the internet. What's the difference between the behavior of human beings on the internet and the behavior of human beings in person towards a child? Well, it's extremely different, right? Tell me, would you say, there's plenty of things that you would say to your child in person, and you could say those things in person, on the internet as well, but can you imagine saying some of the things that you've heard online to your children? God, no, right? So why is it then that we communicate in completely different ways over the internet as opposed to in person? Now, this is also something that's interesting for hybrid work, right? If we communicate completely differently between being in person and being online, what does that mean for hybrid work? But I digress. That's a topic for another show. So we take this AI and we give it all of this human interaction on the internet. And of course, you're probably thinking, the way we treat each other on the internet is horrible. So of course, the AI is going to learn that human beings treat each other horribly, and it's going to learn to treat human beings horribly as well. But my question is, why? Why is it that humans treat other humans horribly on the internet? What is it about our internet-based communications where we are horrible to each other as opposed to being nice to each other? Well, some of it is anonymity, right? When you get into 4chan or something like that, you are completely anonymous. Everyone is completely anonymous and they can say whatever they like. Now, some people use it to say what they truly feel, and some people use it to say what they want to say to gain attention. And that's the thing that triggered me. Gain attention. You see, one of the things that has happened to the internet since the very beginning of the internet is that it was at the very beginning of the internet pretty easy to gain the attention of others because it was sparse. There wasn't a lot of data there. There weren't a lot of websites there. There weren't a lot of blogs there. There weren't a lot of podcasts there. There wasn't a lot of video there. It was relatively easy to find stuff because there wasn't that much stuff. But now we've entered an age where there is too much on the internet. There is too much content being created by too many people and too many AIs. It's so overwhelming that we need curation services like Google and YouTube and all these other services to filter our attention. When we go into Google and we do a search, when we go into DuckDuckGo and do a search, when we go into any search engine and do a search, when we go into YouTube and do a search, our searches are not perfect searches. They're not actually trying to show us what we're looking for. They're trying to show us their version of what it thinks or they think we're looking for. So what happens is that tons and tons and tons of other content, which is probably really great and applicable and useful, goes unwatched. And the content that goes unwatched, there's so much of it. There's tons and tons and tons of content that goes unwatched. So what do people have to do? What do people do? What do kids do when no one's paying attention to them? What do kids do when they're not being paid attention to? What do people do when they're not being paid attention to? They yell louder. They scream louder. They act out more. They try to capture your attention. And I think that's where we are now. We are in a situation right now where everyone who's on the internet, unless it's a one-to-one or a specific private communication, is clamoring for attention. Maybe attention is one of those core things that everybody wants. And when they don't get it, they clamor for it, and they clamor and clamor more and more for attention until they get attention. And then since they know that clamoring for attention gets attention, they continue to clamor for attention. So you have to think for a second, what is the best way for people to clamor for attention? That's it for me for today. See you next time, and until then, don't forget to think future.